Yeah, so the having clause would be the one place where you would have to use a subquery. Any questions on that? And a subquery within a subquery within a subquery. You can nest subqueries as deep as you want. The innermost subquery is executed first, followed by the next one, and then finally the outer one. You can also put subqueries in update and delete statements. It's perfectly valid. Generally only used in the where clause. Could be used in the from clause too. So there are some restrictions on subqueries. When you're using them, you generally cannot update the table in the subquery. So there are some restrictions. Okay, that's it for subqueries. We did all the questions and answers. This week we were looking at views, data import and export. So let's take a look at that. About views already. Oops. So we said that a view is like a virtual table or a stored query. Um, Generally, it's called a view for a reason. You only want to use it to view data. And while it is possible to update views, it's generally recommended that you don't do that. That if you want to update the data in the view, you update the base tables because it can get tricky updating views. So it's important. Views do have a lot of advantages, which should have read through. Um, it basically makes a query a lot simpler. You can make a very complex query into a view, and then the end user who maybe knows just some basic SQL, has only got to do select star from the view, and then it executes that complex view for him. So there's simplicity. Also security. You can give the user access to the view and not the underlying base tables. So there's some security there as well. So views have a lot of advantages. We talked about that, access to the view becomes simpler. Um, you can protect the data better, so there's better security. And a view is defined by the creating query. We already saw some examples of creating views, and you should have looked through these in the YouTube videos as well for that. With check option we talked about, um, and just now and also in the YouTubes. It means it verifies that whatever updates you do make will not make that data now unqualified for the view. So it's pretty straightforward. Once you create a view, you could use it almost like a table, particularly when you're doing queries. Sometimes when doing updates too. So there's some examples here of the housewares, and shows you how to create it and query from it, how that view is translated into the underlying. Questions on views so far? I know we already had a few questions. They shouldn't be that difficult. They're really just a persistent name for a stored query, really, is all they are. And just about any query you can write, no matter how complex it is, can be created, can be saved as a view. And then using that view later on is very simple because the complex stuff is hidden in the view. So you got some restrictions on it. You can't have a temporary view; they don't exist. Well, you kind of create a temporary view when you put a subquery in the from clause. Associate a trigger with a view, not with MySQL. Oracle lets you do it. I wish they would let people do triggers with a view, but they don't do it. course, you don't even know what a trigger is yet. But I'll talk more about that when we get to triggers. So just a couple of restrictions you have on them. Basically, um, and then some of these as well. Does anyone have any questions on undefined merge or temp table? Read this slide 14. Insert into views, bad idea. I recommend you don't do it at all. I mean, this whole thing goes through why this scenario, why you shouldn't, and stuff like that. Again, updating and deleting views, it's not a good idea. You should go through the actual base table to do it because, especially if a view is based on joins, you might be deleting, you might think you're deleting only one row when you're actually deleting a half dozen rows across two tables. So really risky to do updates or deletes. Okay, so you got your couple of views there. And again, updates are sometimes possible, they're just not recommended. And this shows some more views you can create. There's a whole bunch of different views you can create. We looked at some of these. We did some of these already. Right, so large pop, all the different ones. Dropping a view is simple. Just drop view in the view name. Alter views, pretty straightforward as well. Generally, you drop them and just recreate them, or you can actually use the alter view command. Questions on that? Drop alter views. Questions on views in general? All right. Sure, no more questions on views? Going once, going twice. Gone. A couple of questions here. Is the midterm timed? Yes, you'll be doing it through web access. So that's a short, simple answer to the question. Yes, they are timed. I think you get 90 minutes. The midterm will be 50 questions. You do it through web access. And you get 90 minutes to do it. It's almost 2 minutes a question. It's not too dark. All right. Let's take a quick break here, like maybe 10 minutes. We're almost done. I just want to take a quick break here. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about importing and exporting data. Okay? Any questions before we take a break? All right, just about 5 minutes.